Well, we've got two good scarves, but we've got a list of bad teams here. So
Not only was he prepping the episode, he had that saved for 3 weeks. My power went out. He
no, no,
spent
no. That was
three
that
weeks
was off the
prepping that
dome.
transition.
That was off the dome. That was
Lovely,
just
lovely,
winging
lovely.
it.
Well, speaking about off the dome, we're going to talk about a team that just hired a coach with one of the shiniest domes out there. We're starting with Chicago Fire, and they
These
were
transitions
eliminated
are
on the
crazy
20.
this episode.
Isn't that crazy? This is what happens when we don't record for so long. I just get crazy. We are going to talk Chicago Fire. It is the team that was eliminated on the 28th of September, so nearly 2 weeks ago now. And let's give you a little bit of background to it. My beautiful Chicago Fire, the dark horses every year for a playoff berth. I think I've been saying that for the last 4 years. Bold predictions aplenty, and every year you fall short. Two playoff berths in 15 years, the worst DP history in the entire league, and no end in sight. Or is there? After missing the playoffs once again, Frank Klopas is gone, and our Lord and Savior Triple G is rumored, not rumored, it's official now. I prepped this before he was signed. He is officially in charge of the Chicago Fire. And while we all know that the combination of Triple G and Tom Barlow means endless MLS Cups, points records, supporter shield, the works, we ought to look back at what went wrong this season and why they are not playing in the playoffs. But I want to, because you prepped so hard, I want to know what your first one is.
All right. So my first one is actually the exact same title I had for Chicago's what went wrong last season. So clearly they didn't address it. They didn't listen to the episode of the pod, which was reason number one why they're back on this list again. But my reason number one is get more out of your designated player spots. And I'm really glad that Chicago is willing to at least take a chance on designated players versus just not stepping up to swing at all. Montreal. But maybe you should slow the roll a little bit and take a little bit more time, considering very often they seem to be swings and misses. And that's no different from this season. The designated players were again disappointing. Shaqiri brought nothing to the table in the limited game time that he got. Um, I think Jimenez, in my opinion, should just not be a designated player. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but I just don't think he warrants the designated player title. And then Kuipers, while definitely deserving more time, I think based on the price tag and the hype that was coming in, was a bit underwhelming. But again, not going to criticize him too much. It was his first season in the league. Give him more time, build a better team around him. I think he could do much better. But luckily, Chicago finally cut loose for Shaqiri. So now they have that spot open, and hopefully they buy down or move on from Jimenez. So if that is the case, they would have two designated player spots heading into next season. I think that could be a good opportunity for them to turn things around under Triple G and start to see some momentum swinging in the right direction for Chicago because they do a really good job at getting youth players into the team and getting good involvement out of them. So if they can start hitting on their designated players, I think there could be an actual future for Chicago going forward. So I think it was a big area of concern, but I don't think it's something where there's no roadmap to a better future in this regard.
There's always a roadmap with Triple G. The
It's
path
just
to the
the roadmap ends kind of early. That's the only problem.
it well
Actually, not
we
with
covered
Chicago.
with Chicago, the bar is so low. The roadmap to greatness in Chicago is like pull out a parking lot, turn right, drive 10 feet, park. You've just gotten better.
That's true. That's a
But
good point.
I'll build off of that. This is one of the fun things. Like I've got a list of three, but they're not in order. So I just free flowing, just vibes. And I'm going to build off of
Vibes.
that with underperforming expectations. So all off season, it was hyped up the Chris Brady and Brian Gutierrez show, right? Like we've got these two superstar young kids that should have been with the Olympics and should have, we these guys should be in there, and we didn't let them go because they were that important to our team. Then you add Kellen Acosta and Hugo Kuipers that are meant to bring your guys to a whole new level, and they just never hit that level they were supposed to get to, right? Chris Brady showed his youth. He was a bottom five starting goalkeeper when it comes to PSXG plus minus. Pretty bang average and everything else, according to FBref. And you could see it when he played, right? He was either really, really good or it was like who put this 18-year-old kid in goal? And I know he's not 18, but like who put this kid in goal, right? Like, what are you doing? And that balances out to being pretty average, and that doesn't help you, right? Gutierrez has a $12 million striker in front of him, and he finishes with 3 assists, right? He had 5 expected assists all season. He added 6 goals, which were good, 2 of them, from the spot, so we know what that means. He only really scored 4. Um, but his live chance creation for somebody who's supposed to be this next big thing is the American number 10 who's gonna it was minimal at best, right? Kuiper's the only one who kind of lived up to the hype, and but even then, right? You look at guys like Cucho Hernandez, who came in for $2 million less than he did, and he's outperforming him in every metric. Now, sure, maybe they got a better deal or whatever, but I don't know how many times you can keep calling for a rebuild at this point, but they're not planned out well enough to do this right now. They're players that they think were supposed to be their rebuild guys are underperforming. I don't really see, I don't see a lot of people coming up through that youth pipeline. They had one big surge of like, oh man, this is the next group, and only 2 of them are really panned out so far. The expectations of the players this year were definitely low, and I mean, could have been the players, could have been the coaching system, could have been a whole bunch of things. But right now, it's they underperform for sure.
Well, I could tell you, my point number two is that I think it was partially on the coaching system because my point number two, and a reason why I think that I agree with you that they underperformed is because of stale head coach ideas. So Klopas has been involved with the Chicago coaching staff since September 2021. And since 2021, the Fire have been hot trash, pun intended, with their best finish being in the supporter shield being 22nd. Klopas hasn't been the head coach the entire time, but he has been in charge long enough to know that his ideas are not working. I think they need to. Well, this was written before anything was official, but I had written that they needed to bring someone in outside of the Chicago coaching staff that will get more out of their big money signing Kuipers, because in my opinion, he's the guy you build around. Looks like Chicago took the advice because they're already done that, and they brought in Triple G, who was definitely outside of the Chicago coaching staff. So we'll see what he can do with Kuipers. He didn't do a very good job with the USMNT in terms of their striker pool, so it will be very interesting to see what he can get out of Kuipers, or if Greg just has an inability to get anything out of strikers. But that is what I'll be keeping an eye on for Greg coming in there. But at least it's new ideas, which I think is a step in the right direction.
Of course, he's going to get more out of his strikers. He's not playing with people like Florian Balogun and Josh Sargent. He's got Tom Barlow up top. What do you mean? How could you not get the most out of him?
Yeah, you're right. He's gonna bench Kuiper so that Tom Barlow can start up top.
Ugh, please hook it to my veins. I think in the 3 weeks I didn't have power, the reason why it was down so long is because you were hacking my computer. Because my number 2 point is old ideas. At
I always
Alfred,
steal your ideas. That's
you
just
do.
how it is.
That's just how it rolls. And,
Three
and you know
weeks
what?
off, nothing has changed.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery, something like that, right? At Alfred, we had this saying, right? If you want to do something you've never done before, you have to do something you've never done before. Think about it, right?
What a saying. Wow, incredible. You
See,
got a bunch of scholars over there.
that's why you would never make it here. If you want to do something you've never done before, like go on a nice deep cup run for the first time in 2 decades, you have to do something different, something you've never done before, like bring in a coach with new ideas and hasn't been recycled for the 100th time. Bringing back Frank Klopas for his 105th time in charge of the Chicago Fire does not show the ambition to be different than they were, right? He did well in the interim job to give him a decent ending to last season, sure, but did he do enough to earn the full-time job? Probably not. But they gave it to him anyway, seemingly in lieu of any actual looking for another coach. I don't remember hearing any other names rumored to Chicago at that point. It was just kind of like, oh, Klopas has a job, cool. Like, we'll just move.
They
And
did the Greg analysis. They said we have Klopas in charge. Who compares to Klopas?
oh
Oh, look
man,
at
what
that.
what happened there? Something happened. Like there was something at the end of this. Well, let's start our analysis right when Frank Klopas took over, and who's going to get us the same results at least or better than Frank Klopas? Nobody better than Frank, right? But listen, like they gave it to him anyway. He didn't really look for anything else, and that's what they got. They got what they asked for. So it's the same old. And regardless of what you think about Triple G, at least it will be something different than their last hires. So very nice on that point. But that's good. So why don't we then jump forward to your last point, and we can douse this fire, if you will.
All right, well, I hope you brought your yoga mat because this last one might be a stretch. You get it?
Yeah, I've got that one, buddy.
All right, so this is one that I've never mentioned, but I've never used it for any other team before, so I'm not sure
Oh
how
wow, you're
applicable
wait,
this
whoa,
will
whoa,
be,
whoa.
but
You put a new idea to the table,
I did.
new camera, new ideas. What are we? Are you sure you're Connor, or did you get kidnapped, or is this like a
Um,
AI?
might have left the old one back in Syracuse, but all right. I don't even know if this is really like having any effect on the team, but I just thought it was an interesting thing that like I guess wasn't a part of the team that maybe could be something. But on the topic of stale ideas, my last point is a lack of varied MLS experience. Now, I know based off the title, it's a bit of a weird one, but stay with me here. So, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only players with 1,000 minutes or more who have experience in MLS outside of Chicago are Chris Mueller, Fabian Herbers, and Kellen Acosta. That's it. Now, there are players in this team that have plenty of MLS experience at this point, guys like Pineda, Brady, Guti. However, it's only through Chicago, which we've seen through their record over the last decade has not been very good experience. So, what I'm thinking is if Chicago can get a little bit more crafty in the MLS market, they can bring in some more MLS experienced guys, whether in free agency or trades, who can bring in new ideas and ways of playing because whatever they've been doing so far has not been working. And obviously, the head coach is going to be in charge of tactics and all that stuff. But I think having some varied MLS experience on the field who can kind of make those in-game adjustments, maybe based on things they've learned from playing with other teams or just learned from playing with other coaches even, I think could be pretty beneficial to this team. But as of right now, it's super limited in how much outside of Chicago MLS experience that this team is bringing on the field. So it's a bit of a weird one. It's probably a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to throw something a little bit different in there that might have been maybe a little bit of a factor, but probably not a huge one.
I like that. That shows that you did like actual in-depth research. Like this is what we pushed the episode back for. But no, in all seriousness, I agree with you, right? Like it's very, very rare to see a group of players without experience be successful. That's why it's so difficult to have like teams go straight from a USL squad up to MLS and think that they're just going to transition straight in. It's a really good point. Mine's kind of a cop out. Like this last one was just the culture, right? Being a bad culture, right? They took a step in the right direction by offloading Shaqiri, as you mentioned, but as long as you had that MLS 1.0 designated player in the locker room who was clearly there just to collect a paycheck and screw around for keep PG on our show as we do. It's always going to be difficult to change the culture of a perennial losing side that is walking in and saying, "Okay, we're all here to work hard," and then here's the guy making the third highest salary in the league who couldn't care less. Why am I doing the work when he doesn't have to do anything? That's never going to happen. And culture was always the first thing you needed to change. And that's tough to do. So you were completely correct in saying that they took a step in the right direction by offloading Shaqiri. Um, Now it's who do you fill in those spots with? And I'm really interested to see who Greg goes for. Weston McKinnon, Gio Reyna alone.
I'm here for it. Nothing would make me happier than
100%.
watching. Nothing would make me happier than watching the USMNT Twitter heads absolutely malting.
Dude. Like the amount of I've tried so hard in recent weeks
And I've
just
got
to
so far.
and in the end it matters. But if Gio Reyna and or Weston McKinney came back to the Chicago Fire with Triple G, I'm writing myself a code to auto refresh Twitter under the hashtag USMNT and just grabbing some popcorn, just getting some popcorn and calling it because that would be peak entertainment.
Is what they call prime time television.
That's right, must see television.